Hola. Welcome.
Ciao. Bueno.
Is ciao hello?
Yeah, it's kind of like aloha. It is good for both hello and goodbye.
Is it... Does it mean more stuff?
No, it's not, it's not that much like
fine.
aloha. I just
Okay.
mean it could be used as hello and goodbye.
Okay.
It's like a casual
Okay.
hello, like there are other ways to say both hello and goodbye that are more formal, but ciao is like a whatever, ciao.
Ciao.
I know we know it as goodbye. Everyone says ciao for goodbye, but you could say hello that way too.
Okay.
Lessons in Italian by Nicole.
And you
not
are.
fluent.
You were almost there.
Yeah, I was getting there. I'm going to pick it up again sometime. It's a fun language.
Anyway, welcome to Mile High Thoughts.
Welcome indeed. I'm Nicole. Who are you?
Sorry, I was talking over you, so I wasn't sure if we were going to continue.
You felt bad for talking over me. I felt bad for interrupting you.
All right. You're Nicole, the author.
That's right. And you're Cassandra, the videographer.
Correct. And sorry you haven't heard from us for a while, but I swear we've got a good reason.
Super good. I was hit by a semi-truck.
So how about that?
How about that? Argue with me. I dare you. I'm okay, as you can hear. I mean, ish. I wasn't okay, but I am okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I didn't lose any limbs or anything. And beyond that, that's really all we're going to say. We're not going to turn this into the semi-truck episode, but it sucked, but we're back.
Yes, but it did lead to today's topic.
Are you guys ready? PTSD.
And C-PTSD.
Which is kind of like the lesser known about PTSD. We'll tell you all about it.
Yeah.
You remember when we were talking about narcissism and covert narcissism? It's kind of like that. It's the same but different. And C-PTSD, I have the hardest time saying that, by the way, so if I screw it up at some point, you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, same.
So shall we just start with the normal one, though?
Yeah, please.
I shouldn't say the normal one. The one we all know about.
But apparently still psychiatrists don't practice a lot of treatment for it.
Well, okay, so what is it? Let's just start with that.
Yeah.
You guys all probably know it's post-traumatic stress disorder. And basically, it is a collection of symptoms that happen when you have faced an extremely traumatic event that your little brain did not know how to cope with. So,
Examples.
of the kind of trauma it could be, the main way it's known as a moment where you thought you were going to die or the threat of death was real. That is the most prominent one. But it doesn't necessarily have to be. That's usually what causes it, like near death or threat of death. You thought you were going to die or you almost did die. Or it doesn't always have to be that. It can also just really, what it is an overwhelming of your ability to cope. So it's anything that was so stressful and scary that your brain didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah. It doesn't necessarily have to be physical.
Yeah, it could be emotional. It could be just a feeling of sheer terror, which, again, we associate it with death because when are you more afraid than when you think you might die? But really, it's the terror that does it.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that can make you really afraid, or any kind of abuse, really, sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, all kinds of abuse can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And basically what it is your brain doesn't know how to handle whatever this severe event is, and it kind of sets it aside and like kind of compartmentalizes it in this little place in your brain. And the symptoms of PTSD are a problem because you have to process your trauma. And when your brain put it in that little room and said, no, I can't, I don't want to go over here, in the moment that protected you, right? Because it pushed it somewhere else so that you could continue living your life. But ultimately, that's not good because you're going to have those symptoms until you figure out how to take it out of the compartment and process it.
Yeah.
So what does life look like when it is sectioned off in your little compartment that makes you feel safe? It's flashbacks. That's the number one thing that everyone knows about and thinks about when we think PTSD, right? You're going about your business and then suddenly you have this flashback and you're back in whatever traumatic moment you had.
Or nightmares.
Nightmares. Basically, and all a nightmare is a flashback while you're asleep.
Right.
And it's a very intense nightmare, like people wake up screaming or covered in sweat, and they're usually recurrent. It usually happens to you over and over again, which can cause a fear of sleep, which then causes sleep deprivation and all the things that come with that. It's no good. Mm-hmm. It's no good.
Then you're just going down the path of psychosis.
Yeah, because now you're depressed because you're not getting enough sleep. And
it's the root of all evil is not getting enough sleep.
It really is. We need to do a sleep episode because that's fascinating stuff.
Yes, we'll get into that another time.
We will. But just know it screws you all kinds of up to not get enough sleep. And the nightmares can obviously cause that. The flashbacks. Another very common symptom is avoidance. So if you were in a car crash with a semi, for example, you might find it very difficult to drive on that road in general at all. Even to be in a car. Some people just don't do it anymore. Mm-hmm. That's the extreme version. Or if you were abused by someone, you would avoid obviously that person, which is not so much a symptom as a good decision, but you might even avoid where it happened. Mm-hmm. Things that don't necessarily make sense, but just because that's part of your trauma, you would avoid everything. Let's say you got in a boating accident and you thought you were going to drown, and now all of a sudden you can't go in the water at all. You can't even go in a swimming pool. Mm. That's avoidance. Beyond the logical self-protection, it ventures into unreasonable. Mm-hmm. Hypervigilance. That's another one. You feel alert all the time. You are just on edge. Everyone can startle you really easily because you are in this state where you feel like you're in danger, even if you're not. Mm-hmm. What else? Irritability, outbursts of anger. You're going to have trouble controlling your mood, and outbursts of anger in particular. Even if you're not an angry person, and especially if you're not an angry person and now suddenly you're having outbursts, it's probably a symptom. Mm-hmm. And then there's a slight variation. So I saw a few symptoms, and it says that men and women kind of experience this a little bit differently, and either one can experience the other symptoms, but in general, for men, they have a really increased chance of becoming dependent on alcohol or drugs. They kind of try to escape.
Mm-hmm. And cloud that memory, damn it.
Yeah, and women can do it too, but it's just more prevalent in men. And then in women, depression and anxiety and avoidance are more prevalent. And again, men can have those too. It's just where it occurs more frequently. Mm-hmm. And I read a thing that was interesting. It was talking about why that is. And basically it's because women are more likely to blame themselves. In general, not just in this, but in general, women are more likely to blame themselves, and men are more likely to blame external things. So when they have PTSD, and they get diagnosed correctly much more often, and this is why, when they start experiencing these symptoms, they are much better at identifying it as a reaction to something that happened to them. Women, we're more prone to blame ourselves. And so when we start being irritable and depressed and crabby with people, we just think I'm a bitch instead of identifying this external thing that happened to us that's making us act that way. We turn that inward, which means we also have a lot more feelings of guilt and shame because we are blaming ourselves. Whereas men are better at saying, I was okay, and then this thing happened to me, and now I'm not okay. They're better at figuring that out. It's I feel like I'm saying a positive thing, but it sounds like a negative thing.
I swear it's good.
Men are so much better at figuring this out, you freaking bastards. You never blame yourselves for anything.
But yet men were probably the least likely to go seek help.
No, women.
Really?
Yes.
For PTSD?
Yes. Because again...
Oh, a lot of them are sexual, huh? And the self-blaming.
It's the self-blame. They don't understand that it's a medical problem. They just think it's them. They think that there's this expectation that we're supposed to be able to handle everything and we should just be perfect. And men are not like that. Men don't have a need to be perfect. And they're just, again, better at recognizing external forces that are negative on them, and women are more likely to blame themselves. So men, because they're more likely to identify that it actually is PTSD, they're also more likely to get help for it.
Wow.
Women go years and don't even know they have it.
Oh, man.
They're like, I guess I'm just a bitch. I guess I'm just sad. I guess I'm just too hard to please, whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. So there are several, well, I shouldn't say several, there's 4. There's 4 main ways, and that's not to say there's not other ways. So I kind of always had this perception of PTSD as like, once you have it, you have it.
Mm-hmm.
Not true. And I also thought people like to treat it with medicine. Also not really true. They can, but really the way people think that you treat PTSD, there's 4 ways. So behavioral therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, which is just your standard sitting there talking to a shrink.
Mm-hmm.
And they're kind of talking you through a lot of your like attitudes that are kind of negative. You know, you're a negative worldview, trouble trusting other people. They're kind of challenging those views and making you realize that you're kind of seeing the world through a lens maybe you didn't realize you're seeing it through.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's exposure therapy. So in our car crash accident, this would be getting back in the car, even though you're scared. And the idea is that as you are there for a while and you realize, hey, I'm not dying, you'll calm down and you'll process the trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Another one. EMDR. I'm going to pass this off to you because I know that you know a lot about this and I don't.
Well, I did. I've gone through EMDR once to get rid of this memory, this horrible memory. It was just an experiment, really, with a new therapist, and he's like, all right, think about a really traumatic experience. And I was like, all right, I'm thinking about it. And he's like, now I want you to think about the whole thing from, like, beginning to the end. Don't skip out any details or anything. Think of it all the way through. And it's like, oh, my God, you know? So just sitting there in tears, and he's like, okay, as you think about it, follow the tip of my pen. And he just kind of waves it back and forth, almost like hypnotizing almost. But what it is it's mimicking rapid eye movement.
As if you were sleeping?
Yeah. Because when you sleep, that's exactly what you're doing. You're processing your memories and everything that happened during the day. All we're doing is we're processing that specific event by mimicking the back and forth eye movements. And I think distance matters too, because at a certain distance, you're kind of like have the unfocused view. I want to call it.
Okay.
Or you're not.
I feel like it would make sense too that would make a difference because the closer it is to you, the farther you're moving your eyes.
Yeah.
And the less you're moving them.
Uh-huh.
So if you're after a very specific motion, you would have to be a certain distance away.
Yeah. But yeah, it was he's like, all right, think about it all the way through, and he's like, now I want you to think about it backwards. And then he said, think about it and just pause on the most painful part. Just freeze frame all of the emotions, everything that's happening, you know, the worst part of that memory. And for me, as I was doing this, it was like clouds coming in over my memory. It's like I could see in my mind's eye, you know, the memory happening. And all of a sudden I could, quote unquote, see like these little clouds just creeping in the corners of it until like it covered the whole fucking thing. And I couldn't think of it anymore. And he's like, okay, now think about the whole memory again. And I thought about it, and once it got to the most horrendous part, it's kind of like my brain just kind of skipped over it. Just hopped right over it. And he's like, all right, now how stressed did that make you? You know, originally I went in saying on a scale of 1 to 10 that it felt about like an 8.5 or something like that. And by the end of the session doing a lot of this work, it was like a 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said that it was unusual. And he said,
it worked really well on you.
Yeah. Yeah. He's like, wow, you really wanted to get rid of that. And they're like, it worked, you know, but it can vary for different people.
That's interesting what you just said. You really wanted to get rid of that. That's probably a key piece that people underestimate.
Yeah.
Some people cling onto it and want to preserve it because they feel like either they're obligated to or they feel like it's significant for some reason. Maybe it was their last moment with someone or something. Maybe they had someone die in front of them and they don't want to lose that memory even though it was horrific.
Maybe.
Another little tidbit I'm going to throw in on a pretty unrelated note, but kind of, you reminded me of it, and I think it's interesting. So, you process your memories while you sleep. And EMDR kind of replicates that eye movement, the rapid eye movement. Mm-hmm. Did you know that the reason so many people get sleepy while they're reading is because your eyes are doing that same movement?
Oh my God. Duh. Why didn't I think of that? But how come it didn't affect me when I was younger, but now it's like a sedative?
It's not always, and not everyone has this issue. Like, I don't really have it unless I'm in bed already, which is usually probably just because I'm tired. I'm in bed. It's probably not really the reading.
Yeah.
If it's during the day or whatever, though, I could read all day. It's not going to make me tired.
Right.
Some people, like, it could be middle of the day and reading just, they can't do it, like, without getting tired.
Yeah, that's me.
So that's what that is. You must just be sensitive to that in general. If EMDR works so well and you can't read, like, that eye movement just really affects you.
Yeah. Why?
I don't know. Anyway.
Okay.
Fun fact, tidbit, and then one more way of treating it is narrative exposure therapy, which is basically therapy by just what it sounds like, writing out what happened to you, start to finish, going through all of the stuff. And if you haven't already noticed, these all kind of have something in common, which is that you're processing that memory that you put in a little box. So your brain said, I can't handle this, it's too much, go away, pushed it over in a box. Now you're having to deal with all these symptoms because it's still there, not dealt with yet. And then you deal with it, and then it gets much better, or it goes away completely.
It's like people are so afraid that thinking of what happened is going to kill them or something, or it just is so uncomfortable. But it's like the more and more you go through it, or for a lot of people, saying it out loud really takes the power away from thought, or the experience.
Yeah, I think it's just that when it's off in its little compartmentalized box, like when you sleep, important things happen. It moves the events of the day from recent memory to long-term memory. And it's really good for you to do that because now it's this thing that happened to you versus this thing that is happening to you. Which is why we have flashbacks and things that are so overwhelming and you feel like you're going to die again. It feels very present and real because your brain hasn't undergone that process to convert it yet. It hasn't processed it and turned it into long-term memory. It still feels like it's right now.
Right.
And I think that's why people have trouble with nightmares too, because they fall asleep and their brain wants to process it. Mm-hmm. But it's still too overwhelming for it, and they wake up with these awful nightmares. And it's like a unsuccessful downloading of the memory, if you will.
Interesting. Well, I would like to share with you about something that you have to take with a grain of salt, I guess, because technically it's not in the DSM.
DSM means?
I don't remember.
Database of mental...
No, DSM.
Oh, wait. DSM.
I can't remember. My mom told me once, so I don't remember at all.
Darn. Stupid. It's mental disabilities.
It's basically like the USDA of
diagnoses.
Yeah. So you just go through it and go, oh, is this a real diagnosis, Mm-hmm. And then you look on that thing and you're like, oh, here it is. Yes, it is. It's legit.
But this one is not.
It has not been. It has been presented, except they said there was not enough testing. And also that it's so similar to PTSD that why bother giving it another name?
Okay, so not that it's not real. It's real, but we already have a name for that. It's called PTSD.
Yeah. Exactly. So, complex PTSD. Now, this is basically PTSD for people. It's prolonged abuse. So, prolonged emotional or physical abuse, sexual abuse, abusive girlfriend or whatever, or family member being kidnapped, cults.
Oh, cults is a good example. I like that one.
Because, you feel completely powerless. Yeah, so trauma, when you're in a constant state of trauma, basically you're in a constant state of PTSD instead of having seeing a picture of somebody and then flashing back to that, memory. It's just constantly being hyper vigilant. Are people trying to fuck me? Is someone gonna randomly throw something at me? So it's a lot of distrusting people, life in general, warped views of life structure, rough relationships. They're constantly seeking a rescuer, but may also intersperse isolation and withdrawal.
Mm-hmm. So basically, it's a trauma response to life, as opposed to a trauma response to an event.
Right, yeah. So you have a hard time getting through every day. Your whole views on life and everything are totally warped, and you have severe self-esteem issues. It usually goes hand in hand with other disorders like depression or borderline personality or dissociative identity disorder.
I feel like that is an important distinction. I realize a lot of the symptoms are the same, but it's really the cause that is more different.
Yeah.
Because, and I think it's also interesting to kind of muse, I would imagine you could have both about the same issue. Let's say you've got an abusive boyfriend or whatever, and he's constantly talking down to you and calling you stupid and making you feel unsafe. You never know when he's going to go off or whatever. Mm-hmm. And that could create complex PTSD. This person who was supposed to love you, abused you and took advantage of you, and now you don't trust the world and you feel worthless. And that long relationship could cause that. But then you could also have a night where he is just particularly psycho and he comes home and beats you to death and chokes you and you think you're going to die, and you have regular PTSD from that.
Yep.
So you can have them both. It's just that the complex refers more to a general warped interpretation of life and reality and people, versus regular PTSD is more of an event, a specific thing that happened that your brain can't really handle.
Mm-hmm. Right. You couldn't handle life.
Yeah. What's interesting, though, is because they do say that, particularly with first responders, they can develop what they call just regular PTSD from repeated exposure to horrible things, dead bodies and child abuse and stuff like that. And they just call that regular PTSD, but I would almost argue that's more
that's complex.
Complex, yeah, because it's not... if you respond to a fire and you see these horrible mangled bodies or whatever, and then you have nightmares about that for a year, that is PTSD. That is a specific event that created a specific response. Your brain can process it.
Yeah.
Versus the complex is just in general, and I imagine cops probably more than anybody else suffer from this.
Firefighters.
Well, I was gonna hear me out. I'm not done yet.
Okay,
is the mistrust of people in life thing. Because they are dealing with criminals all the time. They're dealing with the worst of it. And when that's your job, though, and that's 90% of your interactions, you start getting this view of the world that's what it is, even though really it's this small percentage of the world.
Right.
So I would think that would be complex PTSD that cops in particular respond to a lot and have a lot. Firefighters certainly too, just from the repeated seeing of horrible things, but I meant as far as coloring your view of humanity.
Oh yeah, cops, definitely.
Cops
for real. Because everybody hates cops. Everybody's shitting on you every fucking day.
Yeah, well, and you're dealing with criminals. Firefighters deal with anyone who's hurt. They get a much more representative sampling of the population. They just get anyone who needs help.
Right. Yeah.
Cops specifically get scumbags.
Right. Yes, that's true. Yeah. So complex PTSD is commonly misdiagnosed as ADHD. And this is how I found out about it,
They seem so different. I don't get
it. So this is how, like, one day I was like, how the hell is ADHD? I can't just say, it's part of the brain or whatever. I'm like, is it trauma related? And I went down the rabbit hole, and that's how I came upon complex PTSD. So the constant alertness, the constant on. So say, they're like ADD, squirrel,
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, complex PTSD, you're constantly on the lookout for threats.
You just see something moving and you're like, what's that? Let me make sure that's not going to kill me real quick.
I heard that. What's that? And that's why the distant shit is so much more engaging than what people are saying right to your face. Because you're used to, like, getting hit from behind when you least expect it, all that kind of shit. So you're a lot more like, oh, environment, what's that little noise? Oh, but you're picking up on everything. What else is ADHD? Help me. I'm having a total mile-high meltdown.
It's like,
oh, I want to do that
in the act.
Can I create a little sound effect, and I'm going to put it in?
Mile-high meltdown.
Like,
brain fart. All sense of the conversation gone.
Loss of train of thought.
Yeah, well, I was smiling and laughing because that's a symptom.
That is a symptom, exactly what I was doing. My brain was thinking, it's not that I forgot what I was talking about. My brain was going so fast. I was further down the conversation line than my mouth was speaking.
You had the conversation, but you lost the place in it where we are.
Yeah.
That was a fucked up sentence. I'm not sure that makes sense, but hopefully you got it.
It did to me.
Okay.
In my fragmented mind. I'm used to piecing together things. Yeah, that is one of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, difficulty focusing, that's a symptom of PTSD and complex and ADHD, all of it. Mm-hmm. Trouble focusing and concentration.
Oh, the impulsivity of ADHD. That's actually complex.
And the bursts of emotion.
Yeah, the outbursts of emotion, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. I find it really fascinating how big a factor just worldview is.
Worldview?
Uh-huh.
What do you mean?
Well, like someone with complex PTSD, and I don't know how much this applies to ADHD, but just not being able to trust people, thinking people have the worst intentions or the worst motives for their actions versus assuming they're the best. It's like that personality test that you get for jobs and stuff, where it's like, I believe people are generally good, or
right.
Where you fall on that, that could be a PTSD thing. If you think that people are generally bad, you might have some kind of complex PTSD. I told you I was going to fuck that up.
Well, here's the thing. I really believe that people did, mean the best, and
you do?
Have the best. Yes. But when I'm out in the real world and I see people, I come to these snap judgments.
Mm-hmm. You believe they have good intentions in a theoretical way, but when you're actually confronted with people in real life, you kind of assume that we're negative.
Yeah. Need to work on some things.
Yeah, I've always noticed that about you. And that's probably where it comes from.
And I'm sure it's a whole trying to read the situation sort of thing, where I'm trying to find the threat before it becomes an issue. Well,
and I talk about this a lot, so forgive me if I've already done it on the podcast. I don't think I have, but if I did, sorry. But I looked into this and I thought it was fascinating. It stayed with me and it comes back up all the time. We have, through evolution, it's hardwired into us that it is safer to have a false positive than a false negative. And what that means basically is that you're walking through the woods and you hear a rustle in the bushes. Mm-hmm. It's safer to assume that's a tiger and be wrong than assume it's the wind and be wrong. Mm-hmm. You'd rather have a false positive, a false that's danger. Because if you think it's danger and it's not, no big deal, you're still alive. If you think it's not danger and it is, you're dead. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a thing that's hardwired into our system that, if you don't know, if you think it's good or bad, err on the side of it's bad so that you can protect yourself.
Right.
So that's kind of just like an alertness and like kind of what you're talking about, just a hypervigilance and it's probably a tiger.
Mm-hmm.
So when you see someone and you're not sure about them, you're better off assuming that they're a tiger and then they're fine.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, I don't. There are ways of overcoming some of this stuff. I've overcome a lot more of it. Nice chunk of it's been cured just by having a safe space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so being able to finally relax and know what that feels like.
Right. Another example is being chronically homeless, which I was.
Another example of causes.
Yeah, another example of it. And, yeah, so finally having, a stable place and having stable people in the home,
Mm-hmm.
you and the kittens and dogs, ain't nothing but safety here,
Oh, yes.
so
Very safe.
that started me on the mend very well,
You can, like, it also depends because you can be in, like, you can have a home, for example, but how you feel about that situation has everything to do with it. It doesn't feel safe because even if you have a home, but you've always got that constant sense of this could go away at any moment, even if it doesn't actually happen, if you're in an environment that makes it feel like it might, it could still cause that.
Mm.
I just mean because, like, let's say you live with somebody who's toxic and whatever, and they're constantly trying to throw you out and they never actually follow through and do it, still saying that to you all the time or making you feel that way or whatever, that could still make you feel unsafe, even if it never actually takes place. It's about feeling safe, not just being safe.
Right. I'm losing my spot so much right now.
Mile high thoughts meltdown.
Mile high thoughts meltdown. I really want to go find like a fucking submarine. It's gonna be amazing.
Oh.
It's gonna be way better than my sound effects.
Did you have more on ADHD and complex?
I am kind of trying to think about that, and I can't really.
I don't think you've even gotten through your theory really entirely, though. That basically that ADHD could be caused by trauma is the gist of it.
That's how I was thinking of it, but then I realized that there is actual just regular ADHD, and then there is just the constant trauma thing.
So maybe your ADHD isn't ADHD at all. It's just complex PTSD.
Yes.
Got it.
Exactly.
Okay. I see what you're saying. So it's not that ADHD is caused by trauma. It's that it never was ADHD.
Yes.
Understood.
Yes. But there are people with legit ADHD.
Mm-hmm. And it is a separate thing.
Yeah. It just is commonly mistaken. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you just don't even have ADHD. You have complex PTSD.
Yes.
Okay, I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
And how do you feel about all this microdosing business? Have you heard about that for PTSD and all that?
Yes, I've heard about it for several things, but I guess PTSD is among the things that it is the most effective on.
Yeah. Microdosing is just basically taking small amounts of... Well, now it started with pot. And it was like, hey, here, smoke pot. It'll help you with your nightmares and, relax you, blah, blah, blah. And then it turned into mushrooms.
That's what I hear about all the time. I don't really hear people talk about microdosing pot, but I hear them talk about mushrooms a lot.
Yeah, and so people will be like, oh, well, microdose mushrooms, which is kind of bizarre to me, but whatever.
Psilocybin? Oh, no, I get it.
Yeah. But, and then I heard microdose MDMA.
Oh, yeah, you're right. That's the one that's so good for PTSD.
They all claim that they're the best for PTSD.
That one in particular, though.
people will fight you on that. But okay.
Okay. I was hit by a truck. You can't fight me.
I just know because we had this conversation at work the other day. And I was like, oh, really? I thought it was this. And then someone else was like, oh, I thought it was this. And, like, everybody thought it was all this different shit. But...
Should we talk about MDMA for a second?
Yes, MDMA. So that's basically, like, the feel-good shit in ecstasy.
Yes, exactly. Well, ecstasy has that, and it's cut with something. Is that the deal?
Yeah, some sort of speed.
Yeah, so ecstasy is about the feel-goods plus the uppers.
Yeah.
And
it's like, I want to feel good and dance all night long. That's what ecstasy is.
And MDMA, though, is actually a thing that your brain produces naturally.
Right.
And that's the much less scary part of ecstasy.
Right. That's not going to fucking dehydrate you and kill you. And
it does kind of fuck you up, though.
Oh, yeah. That's what they say microdosing.
Yeah. It's just how micro can you go, really? I mean, when you look at MDMA, not that I have.
It's supposed to be...
Itty bitty little speck.
I don't know. But,
yes, you do.
I do?
Uh-huh.
Oh. Anyway. I forgot. That's supposed to be really great. So you're just like euphoric. Then
that's just like a serotonin rush, though. That's all that is. It dumps all the happy chemicals out of your brain at once.
Yeah.
That's all that's going on.
Right.
And then the downfall.
So of course you feel good, but then it's gonna fuck up that receptor or whatever.
Yeah, I mean the receptor's fine. It's just that you just like you have a
fire.
You have a bucket of water that we'll call happiness, and then this little drug called MDMA comes and kicks the bucket over. Kicks the bucket over? Yeah. Why did that not sound right? MDMA comes along and tips the bucket over, and you get all like showered in happiness, and you're like, "Yeah, this is bucket awesome," and it is. But now your bucket's empty, and you've got no more happiness until it can refill, and it will. Don't freak out, but you've got to wait for it, and until then, you got nothing.
Right. True. Okay. That's a good visualization, having a moment where I'm like, that's a weird word.
Oh, I love those.
Yeah.
You know what I have it to? What is my problem today?
You got hit by a semi.
You know what word I freak out on all the time, and I don't even know why, but this is the easiest one for me to like create that with? Fork. I could do it with
why? Why does it for me?
Why?
Yeah.
Like WHY?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, I've tripped out. I'm like, how the fuck do you spell why? I've had that happen to me so many times. Like, that's such a weird word.
Oh, see, that's different. I've had that too, where you suddenly don't know how to spell something.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen with fork. Just the sound of it. Like, if I say fork, like 10 times in a row, I'm like, what the fuck is that? Fork. 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 What are you saying? Fork. Who came up with that sound? You know how everyone has favorite words?
Mm-hmm.
I have more words I dislike than I do like.
Yeah.
You know my all-time least favorite word?
Moist?
No. That's a common one, but no. See, I don't mind moist. I feel like that's a thing that everyone just made it a thing and then it became a thing.
Piss?
I do hate that word. But I hate that word because of, like, the connotations of what it actually is, and it just rubs me wrong. The people who have said that have never been people I want anything to do with. Except you. And I made you stop saying it. Now, the word that I hate, that I literally only hate because of the way it feels in my mouth. Wasps.
Oh, yeah.
What the fuck is that?
Yeah.
Wasps.
I feel set up to fail with this word.
Yes, or anything like that has, like, double S's too close together.
Yeah. Oh, man.
What's your favorite word?
I have a lot.
I have a lot too. I always forget them until I need them. You know which one I'm like obsessed with right now? Hiatus. I like it right now. I used to really like crimson. Thought that was a pretty word.
Yeah.
Crimson.
Yeah.
I don't know. We've all got a bunch. Anyway.
What were we talking about? Mile High Meltdown. Woo! Woo!
I'll let you figure it out while I go pee.
Oh, no. Oh, just putting me on the spot.
You got this.
Oh, my God.
You got this.
No, Nicole.
You got this.
You're my memory. Don't leave. Oh, God. Hey, guys. What were we talking about? Okay, let's see if we can backtrack. Okay, we were just talking about weird words. Where did the weird words originate from? Were we talking about a weird word? Oh, God. All right, so we were talking about... Oh, my God. Is this complex PTSD or is this ADHD? Or is this marijuana? No, you can't say that. It's a derogatory term, as we learned in the other episode. Is it cannabis? Is it cannabis' fault? No, this happens with or without it. Forgetfulness is definitely ADHD, though. Save me! I don't remember!
You recovered nothing while I was gone?
I tried to work it out with them, but they're so quiet. They give me nothing.
Okay, well, you were talking about ADHD and how you actually have complex PTSD and not ADHD and how you figured that out.
Oh, microdosing.
Ah.
Okay, so moving on from MDMA, microdosing LSD is now the new one.
I'm not really into that idea, but I'm just not into LSD.
It's a very scary. I won't even try it.
I don't like I don't like stuff that's chemicals. Like, I know that's so cliche and hippie of me, but I'm so much more comfortable with something that is natural. Like, pot is a plant, and mushrooms just grow, and even MDMA, like, yeah, it's not created naturally, but it is in you naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a safety to something that's naturally occurring, even though that's not really true. All kinds of shit in nature will fucking kill you.
Mm-hmm.
But I just feel more comfortable with it than chemicals.
Yeah. Ayahuasca helps.
Yeah, and that's a plant again, or like a brew, right?
I don't know.
It's created with natural shit in the jungle, though.
Yeah. Oh, it's like everything helps.
You know, I will say, I think mushrooms I believe in mushroom microdosing. I've never done it, but I could see how that would be beneficial.
Yeah.
Because you don't necessarily want to trip. That's a big thing, and not everyone's up for it. But it does still have benefits.
Does it just switch this? I think shrooms just kind of change the perspective maybe on life.
Yeah, you see life from the outside. It takes you outside of yourself. Yeah. And you see more big picture. Like, a lot of people, when they do mushrooms, report feeling like they're God, or seeing the world through God. Or the universe, or whatever your terminology for it is. They see it from a more universal outside perspective, and it puts everything into perspective. And you see yourself with a lot more understanding and care and love, and you see other people with, everything just gets more leeway. You see that we're all connected, and you understand that everyone's just here doing their fucking best, and we're all just people. Like, it makes you more accepting and more tolerant, and it just, in general, it's gonna be okay sense. Mushrooms have been proven to be very good too for people that are terminal, people that are gonna die. It helps them with accepting death. That's been documented.
And really, that's what all of these complex PTSDers need. And PTSD, just anything.
Yeah.
Because that's the kind of, as you were saying, it's mostly like a life-threatened thing.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the focus on it is to make the person realize they're no longer in danger, because they're reacting as if they still are. But yeah, I suppose an alternate approach might be that, like, hey, it's okay even if you do die.
Right. I just feel like these are all helpful in different ways.
Yeah. I don't really know what microdosing marijuana would do.
It takes away your nightmares.
Does it?
Yeah, because it reduces REM sleep.
But with PTSD, the last thing you want to do is reduce REM sleep.
I know. I mean,
Just in general?
That's what it is.
Okay.
And then the general feeling of okayness, you know.
See, that one's delicate for me, though, because I think cannabis makes a lot of people paranoid.
It depends. Because if you're doing too much, that's where you get paranoid, and then it also depends on what kind that you're smoking.
So that's why microdosing is the key. That's true, because I have seen that also, that, like, paranoia with cannabis is associated with doing too much, like you said. It's not all the time.
Yeah.
It's when you've done too much.
Mm-hmm. CC.
I want to talk a little bit, too, about the difference between smoking cannabis and edibles.
What do you mean?
Well, they're really different, and I don't think people realize that. People realize that they feel different, but I don't think they realize that it literally does different things to you. It's a different high.
Oh, yeah. We're going to have to do a whole other marijuana episode. There was a lot we wanted to talk about that we didn't get to talk about.
I'm just wondering which one you would want to do if you want to microdose. I mean, you would almost have to do an edible, right? Like, how do you microdose smoke? Just take one hit? That's enough for some people.
Yeah, or I don't know. Does CBD help? Yeah, it does. It's supposed to. I don't know. Probably that would be the more microdosable.
Yeah.
Just going straight to the CBD first.
Why even microdose with CBD, though? Because it's not psychoactive anyway. Is it more better?
Is it more better?
Is it more better?
More better the kind? You ready to go to Hawaii in November?
No, I mean, isn't more better than less?
No, I know. I know.
I thought you were fucking with me, and then I thought you were serious.
No, I was fucking with you. I don't know. I feel like smoking it would help suppress the REM sleep more than the CBD. I think it's harder to microdose smoking pot. But yeah, it would probably just be like a hit.
Yeah. You know what I think is like...
I don't even know if it is microdosing pot. It might just be smoking pot. And then microdosing all the other ones.
Yeah, you know, the thing that I think is cool too about mushrooms is that, like, they're proven to have those positive effects for like 6 months to a year afterwards. From just a single actual trip, not from microdosing, but an actual trip of mushrooms shows positive effect in people's worldview for 6 months to a year.
And then they forget what they saw and have to do it again.
Yes, I mean, it doesn't last forever, but it lasts for a long time for one little trip, you know?
Yeah.
Although it depends on, you know, how you do with drugs, because if you do well with them and you enjoy them, that's not a big deal, but if they're scary to you, tripping is a big ask, especially every 6 months.
Yeah.
Blows me away that some people do mushrooms all the time.
I can't.
Like you've got some people you work with that do it every weekend, right?
Oh my God. We have people outside of work that are our friends, and they're just constantly all freaking week.
Oh yeah, that's right, yeah.
Like, how are you doing drugs again? Like, I'm still rotted from last night. I'm like, oh God. Yeah, feel bad because I really want to go do all these fun things, but I'm like, can the drugs not be involved for one of these times?
Just every now and then?
Every once in a blue moon, can we do it without any hallucinogens? F!
Yeah, because it sounds all fun at first, and like, oh yeah, let's go camping. We're like, fuck yeah! And then they're like, we're gonna take a shit ton of mushrooms. We're like, oh.
No, I don't want to babysit people. They're like, you don't have to do it. I'm like, yeah, but I gotta watch everybody and make sure everybody's safe and boo.
Well, and the thing too is, even if you don't have to like take care of people, like when you're high or tripping or whatever, like I know that it's a great time for you, but you look fucking stupid from the outside.
Oh yeah, to sober people, you look retarded.
Yeah.
You look fucked up
you
and
can't
whatever.
say that word, Cassandra.
Oh, I'm sorry. PC principal just showed up on my ass.
I wish I knew what he says so I could do it. What does he usually say?
I don't know. I just know he, like, pops his peas into the mic all the time. It cracks me up. He's just a big bro.
Sorry, I PC'd you. That's a big one, though.
It is.
I think a lot of them are really fucking stupid, but I'll definitely adhere to that one.
No, it's true. Like, I listen to, like, all my little old podcasts, you know, from, like, 10, 11 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying all this shit. I'm like...
I know. It's so funny how fast it happens because I feel like that's been in place long enough now that we all kind of forgot. We're like, oh, yeah, we would never do that. But you, like...
Things changed.
I had a book that it was in a lot. I went back to read it and retarded this, retarded that, retarded this. I was like, oh my god!
Yeah.
Can't fucking do that, delete!
Never getting published? No. No.
Even fag.
Totally became not PC.
Fag has become much more protected.
I'm so scared I'm going to say the wrong shit when I get old. They're going to be all like, oh, there's offensive Miss Cassandra down at the end of the street there. You walk out there and...
There she is calling the kids retarded.
There she is calling that woman female.
Oh, shit.
Oh.
Calling that woman female. How dare you!
Doesn't she know that she's a crack man?
I want to do an episode on that too.
XL12F.
I definitely want to do one on that too. Y'all, I'm going to just give you a little preface and say I am fucking over it. I'm over it!
Yeah.
And don't get either of us wrong here. We're tolerant, loving people. I don't even like using the word tolerant because, like, what?
Can I just say something?
What?
I feel like all of these words have just been programmed to be triggering for us.
Yes, they have.
To automatically shut us down. It's like the second we hear any word, even if we are aligned with that belief, automatically shuts us down.
Mm-hmm.
I want to try and find other words for these now.
For what?
Anything. Any of the buzzwords, you know.
Okay.
Millennials, like... left wing or, you know, extreme right, anything. Fucking Trump, Hillary. You can't even say their names without, like, some sort of, like, shut up, like, happening inside you, you know? Like, don't talk about that, you know? Like, this, just winding up and getting prepared for the fight, you know? And it's like, I want to find other words for them now. Because I feel like it's just been programmed to shut us down into not listening now. I bet you probably clicked away from the podcast now, huh? You're like, you're not saying anything more about PTSD. I'm out of here.
I really don't think people are that
Especially when the buzzwords come up. Really? You don't think people just click away from a podcast?
Not just because they wander off topic a little bit. I think it has everything to do with if it's interesting to them or not.
No, I think the buzzwords would...
So you think people just heard you say Trump and were like, done?
Or, like, whatever I was talking about beforehand, being offensive or retarded or whatever, you know? Like, saying all of that stuff.
I don't think so. I would take a poll, but it wouldn't be fair because the only people who were left are the ones who stayed. So I would automatically win.
Oh. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm not over, like, treating people well and knowing how to, you know...
Do you have PTSD?
I don't know, maybe. You know me, I don't like diagnosing myself. I don't like diagnosing anyone. Like, I think it's all...
Do you have something that has traumatized you?
Yeah, the truck traumatized the shit out of me. It's like a thing I'm dealing with right now that I'm trying to decide how much of a problem it is.
Yeah.
Because I thought I was going to just exposure therapy my way through it, just get in the car anyway. And to an extent it works. You know, I'm functioning, I'm driving when I need to drive, I'm getting where I need to go. But that idea that the longer you do it, the less tense you're going to be thing, not true.
Mm-hmm.
I'll white knuckle it for 8 hours, as I know after yesterday.
Yeah. That's why, like, some of this exposure therapy thing is kind of eye-rolly for me. I'm like, what? You know, you're gonna do the same thing that happened to me for years and think I'm suddenly gonna get over it? Like...
No, I mean, it's just taking an irrational fear and exposing it as that, you know, like standing on a bridge because you're afraid of water. That's an irrational fear. You're on the bridge, you're safe. And when you make someone do that, they're forced to realize that it's safe.
Yeah.
I do believe in it. I just,
It works better for some people.
It works better for some people, and I think it works better for some fears.
Yeah, it all depends on the person, the fear, or the whatever. Because you have one. You have one of bridges over water.
Yeah. I mean, it's lessened a lot over time.
Yeah.
That was kind of just like an irrational fear of mine, though, because it's not like I had a fucking bridge accident. Like,
yeah. But still, you were very uncomfortable and almost didn't want to go over, you know?
Yeah.
We made plans to, you know, around that thing. Oh, can't go there because we would have to cross that road, you know?
That's avoidance. That's a symptom.
Yeah. So, it's so cool. You have like a past life trauma that carried on.
I know. I like thinking of it that way too, because when you don't actually have the trauma, you just have the trauma reaction. It's like, okay, well, where did that come from?
Yeah, that's deep ingrained into your DNA.
Yeah. I've gotten much better, though. It started with just totally avoiding it, and then I just started closing my eyes while we're going over. And, like, in my brain, I know we're going over, but I don't know exactly when it starts or ends. And I can't see it, so it takes away a lot of the anxiety. And then I started kind of, like, trying to get daring, and I would kind of, like, peek a little bit. And then I'd be like, nope. And then I would kind of do it again. I'd be like, okay. You know, and I don't know, I kind of cured myself of that one. So I believe in exposure therapy.
All right.
Still not thrilled with it, but I could do it. And yeah, but with the driving, I think the reason that it doesn't work as well with that is because exposure therapy is all about showing you that thing you think is dangerous isn't.
Yeah.
But driving is.
It is always dangerous.
Yeah, so I think that's why it doesn't work with that.
Can I just say that every time I'm in the car now, I have this moment where I'm like, I think of that meme or the video or whatever the fuck it was of, what was it, ants or a slug or whatever, and they just drew a line and they just walked the line or whatever.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, oh, it's so crazy, you know, you just draw a line, you know, and I'm like, we're doing that every day when we drive. There are lines painted on the frickin' ground, and we are just abiding by these painted lines, and we're trusting everybody else to abide by these painted lines on the ground.
It's true. Although ours makes a little bit more sense, because you can't just realistically start off-roading, you know? An ant could just go around the fucking line if it felt like it, with no repercussions. If you just go off-road in your car, you're going to destroy your car.
Well, if you go slow enough. If the thing about that is, like, the ant can veer off because the whole place is the same.
Right.
So if it was, like, a giant paved road, but they only had lines for, like, a couple of whatever.
I just feel like when there aren't guidelines, we do our own thing. Like when I'm in a giant parking lot and no one's there, I don't still go up the lanes. I cut diagonal through that bitch if I feel like it. Because it's safe. There's no repercussions. I'm not going to get pulled over. I'm not going to hit anyone. It's not going to fuck up my car. So I feel like when there are no repercussions, I do ignore the lines. But in most of our life, if we just decide we're going to ignore the road, we're going to get pulled over pretty quick.
No, I don't know. A lot of people like to just drive on the fucking side.
On the shoulder?
Yeah.
Yeah. See? Yeah. And there is every once in a while a rogue ant.
Yeah. It's just... Driving is insane. We're driving this giant, heavy-ass metal things, and we're trusting everybody with our lives. And just... all right, I'm hoping you're obeying traffic laws. Like,
well, and how reckless people get with it. They're going 80 or whatever. Like, it could go so bad, and we all know it could go so bad, and yet they act like it can't, you know? Like, tailgating and swerving and weaving and running lights and all kinds of dangerous shit. It's like, how are you so out of touch with how dangerous what you're doing is?
I don't know. I like to drive fast. I'm guilty.
I mean, I enjoy it too, but I'm aware of the danger and I won't do it really in most circumstances. I'll do it if it feels safe. Like when we were driving to Utah.
Yeah.
And we've just got miles and miles of straight open road. I push that thing to 120. It's not the fast that freaks me out. It's the other people.
Yeah.
It's if I feel vulnerable to outside forces or not.
Yeah. Luckily, I at lunch breaks and stuff like that, all I do is watch car crash compilations because I hope that, like, subconsciously this all just digs in so I'm, like, mentally prepared for any sort of driving situation, you know, like, oh, somebody could come out from here, oh, somebody came out from here, oh. And it's actually helped. It's helped me avoid a couple of near crashes, actually. I didn't get to tell you about that the other day.
Would you like to?
Sure. Were you in the car with me? No, you weren't in the car with me. Kaya was in the car with me.
We're easily confused.
I knew somebody else was there, okay? And
that's the dog. By someone, she means the dog.
There was a being sitting there in the other seat, okay? And there. No, we're just making a left-hand turn. And there was a truck in the oncoming lane that wanted to make a right.
Mm-hmm.
But we got the green light, so we're all driving, and he starts driving, like, when we're really close.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, how does this guy not see us, like, driving straight for him? But, yeah, the outside turn lane just kept on driving, but he drove in front of me, and I had to honk. And I had to wait for traffic to clear, and then had to go around him. But it was, like, a huge truck hauling a horse trailer.
Oh, jeez.
But it was an old guy.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's why I drive the way I do, is because I'm constantly anticipating stuff, and I don't want to ever be in a situation that I don't have a way out of. Like, I don't want to be accelerating into people who are going too slow to the point where if they don't do what they're supposed to do, I'm in trouble. That's basically, I don't like to be in a situation where the only way I'm going to be okay is if everyone does what they're supposed to do, because I don't count on them all to do it. Mm-hmm. So I have to have at least some out, whether I'm far enough back that I know I can hit the brakes in time, or I know I can switch lanes or something, but I always need an out somewhere, or I don't feel safe. Mm-hmm. And then you get hit by a semi while you're fucking minding your own business. So really, there is no safe.
Yeah. Right? You just couldn't do anything. You were stopped. So it was like...
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could have been more aware of my rearview mirror and maybe moved had I seen it coming, but... That's a pretty big ask.
I know, right?
Yeah, I mean... You just can't watch everything at once. I am much more aware of my rear view now, though, and maybe that's where my anxiety comes from, is I'm aware I can't watch everything.
Yeah.
Whereas I used to feel like I was pretty good at watching everything, and then it's like, nope, sucker, you forgot behind you.
Right? Please check all of the mirrors constantly.
And again, there's a certain sense of counting on people to do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
The people behind you are going to stop. Like, we basically expect that. Even though we know fender benders and rear end crashes are really common, like, we don't do anything about them other than hope and expect everyone will stop when they're supposed to stop. Mm-hmm. So I got a manual car to try to cope with driving. I don't know why I thought that would help.
I don't know why either. You always do this, though. You're like, I'm gonna take a goal. I'm just gonna make it 10,000 times harder. Like,
no, it's because I've always wanted one, and I guess I thought it would make it fun again.
Yeah.
That's why I did it. It wasn't to make it harder. It was to make it fun again, because it was really not fun for me to drive, and I was like, maybe that'll make it fun.
Mm-hmm. And it just added more stress.
No, I mean, it is more fun.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not enough to just overcome everything. It's not a cure-all. Because I actually really do enjoy it, especially for the first, like, half hour to an hour that I'm in there.
Uh-huh.
I have a tolerance, you know, and it burns out pretty quickly. And when I'm done, I'm done. I'm not going to calm down again. That was another thing that I kept trying to do yesterday because I just had so much to do. So I was driving all day and I was like, okay, I'm getting anxiety, but I just have to keep going. I'm going to exposure therapy this and I'm going to calm back down. Nope. Didn't happen. It just got worse and worse and worse.
Yeah. And then you just come home to a very stressed wife. I'm like, no.
Yeah, but I don't know. So I guess treating this stuff, like maybe it's just a blend of all of it. I mean, I do think it was good that I got right back in the car and didn't let it turn into this huge thing in my head.
Yeah.
But it also didn't just fix everything.
Yeah.
So maybe you need a little exposure therapy and a little cognitive behavioral therapy and a little bit of EMDR.
EMDR.
EMDR. So many acronyms.
I know.
So, yeah, I don't know. And just time does help a lot. Like, it says that your symptoms could be improved or even go away all on their own simply with time. Your brain wants to process it. It is trying to process it, and probably it eventually will.
All right, well, I think that's about all I got for PTSDs.
Me too.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us on another episode of Mile High Thoughts. So sorry. We did like weeks of nothing. I apologize.
But now you're super excited because we're back.
All right. Wait, we did something at the end, right? No, we did something at the beginning. We're supposed to do this. Well,
no.
we're just going to have to end it that way. All right, thanks for joining us on Mile High Thoughts.